Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a pretty wild topic, how ancient, completely benign cultural icons were hijacked by extremist movements and literally weaponized into modern symbols of hate. Because here's the thing, hate rarely actually invents anything. Instead, it borrows, it twists, and it corrupts. And we're going to look at exactly how that happens.
So, let's just jump right in and ask the fundamental question here. How does parasitic extremist symbology actually work? I mean, how does something originally created to represent light, or luck, end up getting dragged into the absolute darkest parts of human history? Well, to really understand this process, we kind of have to start with the most infamous example of all time.
We're going to map all this out thematically today. We'll start with the ultimate stolen symbol, then look at runes in the SS, examine hijacked crosses and wheels, and finally, we'll wrap up with modern codes and subcultures.
All right, part 1. The ultimate stolen symbol, the hijacking of global heritage.
We've got to begin with a basic historical fact. Hitler absolutely did not invent the swastika. It actually had this incredibly vast journey first. For literally millennia, all across India, Greece, Rome, and even Norse mythology, it was a universal emblem of goodwill. And shockingly, right up until the 1920s, it was actually a good luck charm for Native American tribes like the Navajo and Hopi, and even a shoulder patch for the U.S. 45th Infantry Division. But then, in 1907, an Austrian secret society called the Order of the New Templars used it, and by 1925, Hitler had stolen it. He took it, rotated it 45 degrees, slapped it on a red background with a white circle, and completely stained a universal icon of positivity.
The really crucial point here is the sheer mind-boggling contrast. I mean, the word itself is derived from ancient Sanskrit, literally meaning conducive to well-being. And yet, over the course of a mere 20-year regime, it was manipulated to represent a horrific legacy of terror. It's a total 180.
But, the Nazis didn't just stop there. They also co-opted the eagle. Now, originally, the eagle was a long-standing emblem of the Holy Roman Empire. It was copied from the Roman army standard and used by the Teutonic Knights and the Kingdom of Prussia to symbolize strength and German unity. But the Nazis hijacked this bird entirely. They created the Parteiadler facing left for the Nazi Party and the Reichsadler facing right for Germany's national emblem. They basically took this deeply historical symbol of unity, fused it with their twisted swastika, and used the whole shebang to solidify their grip on state power.
Moving on to Section 2, Runes and the SS, Occultism and Germanic Mysticism.
To truly understand the SS, you really have to wrap your head around the fact that their symbols were rooted in a completely pseudo-scientific, mystical reinterpretation of ancient alphabets. There was this mystic named Guido von List who created what he called the Armanen system, which was essentially a fake runic system. The Nazis later adopted this bizarre reinterpretation to visually justify the twisted ideology, the surveillance, and the sheer terror carried out by the SS across occupied Europe.
Just think about the ancient Sowilo rune for a second. Traditionally, this represented the sun, but in 1933, it was totally corrupted. That infamous double lightning bolt, it was designed by an SS commander who essentially ripped off those ancient sun symbols and converted them into an emblem of extreme paramilitary brutality. It ended up standing for both the initials of the SS and their rallying cry, Victory, Victory, or in German, Sieg.
It's actually chilling how methodically the SS cataloged all of human existence using these stolen runes. They assigned the Odal rune to represent heritage and land, which, by the way, is a symbol still used in white supremacy today. Hitler's personal adjutants used the Ehwaz rune. The Hegel rune represented unshakable faith in Nazi philosophy. They even used the Life rune for the Lebensborn program for so-called racially valuable families. And when it came to death, they used the Death rune, which was literally just an inverted life rune, to mark SS graves instead of a traditional Christian cross. Oh, and the Tyr rune was slapped on things to symbolize military leadership and battle. From birth all the way to death, they completely replaced traditional iconography with their own twisted brand.
And even military history and old peasant lore weren't safe from this. Take the Totenkopf, or Death's Head. Historically, this was a proud Prussian cavalry emblem worn by World War I royals. And the wolf's hook? That was inspired by medieval wolf traps and had become a 15th century symbol of German liberty and peasant revolts. But both of these were swallowed whole by the SS. The Totenkopf became the symbol for the units running the concentration camps, and the wolf's hook was adopted by the Waffen-SS. The crazy part is, it remains active in neo-Nazi circles like the Aryan nations today who just replaced the crossbar with a sword.
All right, let's jump to Section 3, Hijacked Crosses and Wheels, Corrupting European Religion and Spirituality.
Consider the Celtic cross. The traditional version is this beautiful, elongated Christian cross with a ring.
with roots going all the way back to 9th century Ireland and France. But what did modern hate groups do? They simply squared the dimensions. By making it uniform and blocky, groups like Norwegian Nazis in the 1930s, and later the KKK and white supremacists, completely disconnected the symbol from its original religious context. They turned it into a new, highly recognizable and generic emblem of hate.
It's a running theme, right? Extremists relentlessly pursued ancient solar symbols just to fabricate a pseudo-scientific narrative of Aryan superiority. The proto-Nazi Thule Society hijacked the Bronze Age broken sun cross. Then you have Heinrich Himmler, who took ancient Norse and Celtic sun wheels and transformed them into the 12-rayed Black Sun, or Sonnenrad, which he plastered all over Wewelsburg Castle. And the Triskelion, which was originally an ancient Celtic spiral, it got replaced with 3 interlocking sevens by the South African white supremacist group Afrikaner Weerstandsbeweging. And sadly, these co-opted shapes are still heavily used as logos and tattoos by white supremacist groups globally today.
Now, the Iron Cross is actually a uniquely complex example in all of this. Its original use dates back to the 13th century Teutonic Order, and it was a traditional Prussian military decoration. The Nazis, of course, added a swastika to it. After World War II, that specific Nazi medal was discontinued. And while modern hate groups definitely still use variations of it today, the Iron Cross was also heavily adopted by post-war American biker, outlaw, and skateboard subcultures as just a generic badge of rebellion. So in this specific case, context is literally everything. It is absolutely not always connected to Nazism.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Modern Codes and Subcultures. Hiding hate in plain sight.
When outright Nazi symbology gets legally banned, these modern groups don't just disappear. They're forced to develop insidious new codes. They basically function like a dark cryptographic network. Take the number 18. That stands for Adolf Hitler, simply because A is the first letter of the alphabet and H is the 8th. Then there's 88, which translates to Heil Hitler, referencing the salute. The number 14 refers to a specific 14-word slogan coined by American neo-Nazi David Lane. And 111? That's a numeric code used by an Idaho prison gang known as the Aryan Knights. They use these numbers to signal each other right out in the open.
And they don't just use numbers, they steal everyday imagery too. The violent terrorist network Atomwaffen Division actually hijacked the standard scientific radiation warning symbol, the trefoil, for their logo. Groups like Vanguard America and the Patriot Front adopted the fauces, that's the ancient Roman bundle of sticks representing authority, which, fun fact, you can actually find on the back of the US Mercury dime. They use it specifically because it avoids the immediate obvious stigma of the swastika. Some groups even directly and quite audaciously appropriate civil rights symbols. They took the 1960s Black Power fist and turned it into a white Aryan fist. Oh, in crossed hammers? Often used over a cogwheel by violent global skinhead groups, it perfectly highlights our core thesis here. Hate cannot create, it can only corrupt.
In countries like Germany, where Nazi symbols are strictly illegal, hate groups have gotten really good at exploiting legal loopholes. If they can't fly a swastika, they'll just pivot to the pre-Nazi imperial German flag, which originally had absolutely no anti-Semitic meaning whatsoever. Or they'll use the symbol of the SA, Hitler's early brown-shirted stormtroopers. Sometimes they even fly the hammer and sword flag of the Black Front, which was actually a rival Strasserist faction that Hitler himself purged in 1934. They don't care about the historical irony. They just constantly pivot to circumvent the bans.
It's wild how niche fiction and obscure historical parties are just constantly mined for new logos. Take the Phineas priesthood emblem, which is a P with a horizontal line through it. This originates from a 1990 white supremacist book. There's no actual formal organization behind it. It just operates as this meme-like marker to inspire lone wolf violence. It's the same story with things like the Arrow Cross, which was dug up from a 1930s Hungarian fascist party and repurposed for groups globally today.
And this infiltration extends all the way down to everyday street fashion. For example, a tattoo of crossed grenades is the emblem of the Dirlewanger Brigade, which was a notoriously sadistic Waffen-SS unit. So sporting that tattoo is a way to signal extreme brutality. They also completely co-opted 1970s British skinhead culture. In those circles, something as simple as the specific way a person ladder laces their steel-toed boots, specifically with red or white shoelaces, can quietly signify racist alignment.
If there's one thing you should take away from this explainer, it's the truly parasitic nature of extremism. Hate rarely has an original thought. It relies almost entirely on stealing the profound, the ancient, and the mundane to build this false illusion of historical legitimacy. It literally masks its true nature by wearing the clothes of our shared human history.
So as we walk through the world, understanding this context really forces us to ask some hard questions. When symbols of peace, spirituality, and unity are literally stolen from history, how do we go about reclaiming our shared heritage? And perhaps even more importantly, are we paying enough attention to spot the insidious new codes that these groups are writing right in front of us today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps you decode the world around you just a little bit better.